All right, today we are going to put together a task that syncs product inventory by SKU. And the purpose of this is, as it says, to find all the variants that have a similar SKU according to a whitelist and to make sure all of their inventory is in sync at all times. For the purposes of this, we're only going to be using a single location, that of the shop's primary location. So to begin with, we are going to suppose that we have a whitelist of variants already in place, or of SKUs. We're going to prepare our initial query to find out what the inventory levels are like for each of those SKUs at the very beginning. So I don't think we have any products in here yet. Let's find out. Just the one. Cool. So we're going to expand our t-shirt here to give us a couple different variants. So we can experiment with syncing between this one and a copy of this product that we'll set up. So we'll say we have small, medium, large. It's good enough for now. Save. We'll say this can be our SKUs, very straightforward. We will, sure, let's inventory, and then we'll duplicate this, and that's fine. All right, sweet. So now I've got two things here. Let's say we're only going to look at the medium variants. Again, I'm hitting Command Enter to fill all this in. So we have our ID, we have our SKU, we have our inventory, quantity. Cool. Okay, great. So these are across two different products, which is what we expected to see. My goal here is to be able to support more than one of these. So we're also going to say SKU large. And here are our large SKUs and our mediums, and the inventory goes along with those. Great. So the general architecture for this thing is going to take the form of, well, we're going to respond to two different subscriptions. One will be a trigger, and we'll use that to establish the baseline, which we'll cache. We'll be establishing what the original quantity was for each of these SKUs. And then on a schedule, we'll have the task actually run through, find out how each variant's inventory may need to be adjusted, and then actually execute that adjustment. So again, we'll respond to a trigger, and that trigger will be to assume that everything is synced up, cache the starting value, and then on a schedule, we'll measure the difference between the cache starting value and where things actually are, add up that difference, and make sure that everybody arrives at the same place at the end of any adjustments. So let's begin here. So we're going to be responding to a trigger. We're going to say if event.topic equals mechanic user trigger. Actually, before we do that, both of those scenarios are going to need an idea of what the inventory currently looks like by SKU. So let's begin by figuring out what our SKUs actually are. So and then we will put together our actual list of what variants we actually have in place. So assign variants by SKU. And then I'm going to grab some boilerplate from our help area. This block is useful for setting up a query that needs to loop through several pages, which is what this will need to do. Except instead of dealing with Oh, it's funny, this is also inventory related. That was boilerplate, we don't need it. Product variants is what we're working with here. Variants. We have our cursor. Our query is going to be based on these SKUs. So we're going to say our query is the SKUs. I'm going to transform that into something we can use like this. This might look a little weird at first blush, but the result of this is going to be something that looks like this. SKU this or SKU that. That's what that gives us here. After our cursor, which we'll be updating as we go. And yeah, so we have our, not total inventory, but inventory quantity. 3 properties that we care about for each variant. All right, cool. So for each product variant edge in product variants edges. So our variant is the node attached to, come on, node attached to this variant edge. And then we need to add this into our hash up here. So to begin with, I'm going to say if variants by SKU okay. It's gonna be a typo of the day. Okay, cool. So at the end of this, what we should have is a hash mapping a SKU on one side to an array of variants on the other side. And to test this, we're just gonna echo that out right here. So action echo variants by SKU. We can just add all these in. Actually, no, let's leave out one set just to prove that we're not touching SKUs that we shouldn't be touching. Take that. Cool. So we have our small on the one side, and on the other side we have an array of 2 different variants with inventory quantity and a SKU. Cool. Same thing with medium, 2 variants, inventory quantities. Awesome. All right. So again, we talked about responding to 2 different events, and we'll leave the echo in there for testing. The first thing that we're going to do is say, is to ensure during our manual trigger that the inventory is synced up by variant, because the result of this run is going to be a cached, is going to be caching the state of the inventory for each SKU. So we're going to say for SKU, let's see, well, let's do it this way, for pair in was it inventory quantity? Yeah. Yeah, I can do it this way. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's our error checking. If we emerge out of here, then we know that everything is synced up, which means that we can, I'm deciding if we want to run this, or like actually perform the caching for individual SKUs that are lined out. I don't think I want to do that though. So what I'm gonna do is wait until we get out of this for loop to perform the for loop again. But this time we'll actually do something with it, not just perform a check. So we'll say the SKU inventory quantity is this, and what we're gonna do now is do our caching. So we'll say our cache key, assign cache key equals, for this sort of thing, I like to involve the task ID in case there's more than one task that's doing this sort of thing. So we're going to involve the task ID here, and we're going to say task ID, and then we're going to grab the SKU in question. And then we're going to actually just convert this to a checksum in case the SKU happens to contain characters that aren't allowed as cache keys. For that, I don't actually remember what the name of this filter is. So, filters. Actually, I think this is a standard liquid. I'm looking for a SHA filter. Is it here? No. Shopify filter SHA 256. Yeah, cool. So this isn't a part of the Liquid standard library, but it is a part of Shopify's standard library, if you will, and we have ported that over to Mechanic. So I'm going to grab this, come all the way back over here, and this is going to be our cache key. It's going to be a combination of the task ID and the SKU itself. So action cache, and then set cache key, and then the value is going to be the inventory quantity here. I don't know what that's indented. Okay, cool. And that's our first phase. So let's test that and make sure that that works. We need to handle preview events here in a minute. We'll get to that right after this. So first we're going to say run. Cool. We cached twice, 1 and 4, as expected. Come back here. Now we're going to test to make sure that it doesn't do that if not everything is lined up. So we'll hit save. We'll run it again. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted to see. Bring it back up into compliance and come back here. And let's get ourselves some preview actions for what we've done so far. So we're going to say no, down here. And the approach that we're going to take here is to just adapt some data that's coming back from graphical over here. Capture result JSON. It's just a pattern that I tend to use for test data. All the integers and then rotate by one for the next set, or for the next object. Okay, and then and that should be enough to give us a cache action. Good, good, good. And our echo is showing us something as well. We'll disable this when we're done with testing. Okay, cool. So we've got our initial sync. The next thing that we can do is handle our scheduled events. So let's add that here to begin with. Mechanic, scheduler, I'll say this, I'll have this run every 10 minutes. All right. And we'll say this should be contains mechanic/scheduler, so as to allow for different scheduler events, because this would match scheduler /10 minutes or /hourly or /daily or /Monday or whatever else, and all of those recurring topics are totally appropriate for this. So what we're going to do is let's see. So we already know that we have a map of variance by SKU. So what we're going to do here is do something similar. We're going to load in all of the cached inventory quantities from before. So, I've had a thought. The end of the scheduled block here is going to conclude with an adjustment and a resetting of the cache. So we may actually be able to reuse this here somehow at the end. And I think we'll probably be able to, but I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that refactor until we get a little bit further. So for now, let's load in our cached values. So we have cached inventory quantities by SKU, which is tedious, but there we are. We're going to loop through our SKUs. For SKU in SKUs, because you recall up on line 1, we've assigned this to this just as a shorthand. So for SKU in SKUs, we're going to recreate our cache key from right here. Oh, what is this? Oh, I don't know how that happened. That's funny. That doesn't need to be a separate thing at all. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. For SKU and SKUs, we'll set up our cache key, task ID, pending the SKU, SHA-256. Okay. This is maybe needlessly verbose, but clarity is nice. So, and then we retrieve things from the cache with the syntax cache key. Okay, cool. And then we actually need to put that into our map here. Assign. You know what? That's actually one more level than we need. This variable name already contains enough information for a casual reader to understand what is going on here, so I'm going to skip this extra assignment. Okay, cool. So now we have this, and I'm actually going to add another echo here. Action, echo, nope, it's not an action. Yes, it is. Action, echo, this, cool. Every 10 minutes we have this thing happening here. Perfect. I'm going to save it, and in 8 minutes we should see something appear. All right. Okay, now I got to think through this. So we have our cached inventory quantities. We have our variance by SKU from earlier in the task. Variance by SKU. This render is a little bit slow. Okay, so now what we're going to do is say for, So we need to, for each individual SKU, not each variant, but each SKU, we need to take the original cached quantity. We need to add up the distance, not the distance, but like the difference between each variant's inventory quantity level and that cached quantity. Take the sum of all of those differences, and I'm gonna have to write this out to make sure I understand it. Okay, cool. So let's say that we have a cached quantity of 5. We have one variant that's dropped down to 2, one variant that's dropped down to 3, one variant that has not dropped down at all. So this one right here, well, okay, so this one has gone from 5 to 2, which means we've got a difference of 3. This one has gone down 2, which is a difference of 2. This one has not gone down at all, which is a difference of 0. Which means that this SKU has experienced a total loss of 5 inventory quantity units, which means that this should be updated to go down an additional 2, and this should be updated to go down an additional 3, and this should be updated to go down 5, actually. Yeah, that's how that should work. So what that means yeah, I guess what that means is that we can, let's use not 5 to make that a little bit, let's do that. Okay, so this one has lost 3, and this one has lost 1, which means we've experienced a total change of, no, I'm sorry, this one has lost 2, and this one has lost 1, which means that we've experienced a total change of 3, which means this needs to go down an additional 1, and this needs to go down an additional 2. I think it's hard for me to think through things when I know that I'm being watched, even though this is just a screen recording. Thanks for bearing with me. 5 minus 3. So this one's experienced a loss of 2. This one's experienced a loss of 1. So this needs to go down an additional 1, arriving at a quantity of 2. And this needs to go down an additional 2, arriving at a final quantity of 2 again. And this one needs to go down by 3, arriving at a total quantity of 2. Which means everybody is synced up at the very end of this, which is what should happen. So let's see, what math did I actually just do? So our total loss was 4, right? 2, 1. No, our total loss was 3. Wow, okay. So the delta for sync should be adding up all the interim losses. So the delta for sync should be a -3. So we're adding up all of the, let's see, we add up all of the interim deltas, and then to arrive at the additional delta that needs to be applied to sync everything up, So the total delta is -3. We get here by is just the total delta minus the interim delta. -3 minus a -1 is +1, which gives us -1. Yeah, I think so. Total delta is -3 minus the interim delta is 0. Yeah, okay. So it's total delta minus the interim delta, even if that's negative. Huh. Okay. Here we go. Oh, that felt a lot harder than it should have been. Okay. So for SKU in SKUs. Let's see, total. And the delta comes from subtracting the new value from the old value. So the new value is this minus the old value, which is cached inventory quantities by SKU. That's weird. Okay. We have our total delta. Right, new minus old. New is 3 minus 5 is -2. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, and now I've gotten through here. And now our delta for the sync, what did we say? We arrive at that, we have to loop this again. For variant in, just copy this. Oh, I just recalculate it. Okay. So the delta was this. I love recalculating that. I'm not going to. Okay, I hope we can remember this. Okay, so the interim delta is this. We arrive at the sync by subtracting, no. We take the total delta and subtract the interim delta. -3 minus -2. 3 plus 2 is -1. -3 plus 2 is -1. Okay, cool. So we take the total delta and then f at 0, we can proceed onward. And if it's not, we can do our actual adjustment. So adjust quantity. Oh, we can do this in bulk. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you always want to return errors. Mechanical surface these to you and flag the action as failed if these are present. So our adjustments look like this. Cool. I'm going to do this by SKU. So we'll use this bulk. We'll use this bulk mutation but we'll do one of those per SKU. Deltas. And then what do we actually want to do here? I guess we can just form this hash, right? Yeah. But we need inventory item ID. Okay, so that comes from where? Let's pull up the query from before. Inventory item ID. Cool. Okay, so this can go all the way back up here where we're fetching our data. And we're at variant. Come on. And then using this. Okay. Okay, adjustments, assign adjustment, blah, 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 blah. Since we plural. This array up here. Okay, sweet. So we've got all of that. And now we're finished looping through our variants. If adjustments is not equal to empty, my spacebar is in a rough way. And here's where we can actually perform our mutation, which we totally lost. So let's recreate that. Love graphical. Bulk. I need to provide that with arguments. And here's where our adjustments go. And then our location ID is here, and then we return user errors. Awesome. Okay. Copy. Here's where our adjustments go. We're going to have to format that as JSON because it is already in, well, JSON won't even want because that's not JSON format, but this is valid graphical, or GraphQL rather, right here, so we don't have to do any additional formatting. And then our location ID, we can actually get from the shop object. Primary location ID, I believe is what that's called. And if it's not, we'll find out. Okay. The last thing that we need to do is update the cached value for this SKU. And I know I thought that originally we could reuse this stuff. We're not going to though, because A, we don't need to scan through variants. B, we don't need to ensure things are synced up because they won't be. We're actually going to be performing the sync ourselves. So what we're going to do is, yeah, just do this ourselves. So I wonder if I can restructure this though a little bit. Oh, actually, 40, our 10-minute marker passed. I want to see if that actually worked. Oh, yeah, we can delete all of that stuff. Oh, our action, this is not an action yet. Okay, cool. So we're going to save this. We're going to come down here, see how the scheduled item worked. And we did actually echo out our cached values, which is perfect. We grant access because now we're writing inventory, and so we need access to that. Not quite there yet. We're just viewing products. Maybe we're just looking for more product scopes. Okay, cool. So we are closing and undone, I think, testing aside. Where was I? Yeah, I was gonna redo this stuff. Okay, cool. So cached inventory quantity is now this. Cool. Cool. So now we just need to update the cache at the end of this process. What do I actually want to cache here? Okay, I need to take the cached inventory quantity and I need to add the total delta is what I need to do. Yeah, okay, cool. So down here, and if cache key. Okay, that should actually do it. Okay. And in only 158 lines of code, no less. Okay, cool. So when user triggers the task, we set record and calculate cache key with a value that we know about. Every 10 minutes, we can get that echo out here in a second, we perform an adjustment. We need to update our preview data. All right. This isn't quite right yet, so we need to do some tweaking. But again, the purpose of using preview actions is to test your task, among other things. So let's update our test data a little bit here. So we know we're going to need to be adding our inventory item IDs right here. Okay, this is going to be 4, this is going to be 2, and actually we can switch this test data based on what event we're in. So we can say if that is laggy. If it's that, otherwise it's some other number, because if we're testing a scheduler, the scheduled event, we want to be doing something a little bit different. Okay, actually we can use our test numbers from before just because. So this one is going down to 3, this one is going down to 2, and we'll add one more so we can test a variant that just doesn't change. We'll keep that structure though in case you want to play with it. And then this is number 3. Okay. Okay, let's see how I did. So, we're echoing out our SKUs. We set, we know that it's 5, and we can test immediately that this first part works. If we change this, that should give us an error. Yep, perfect. And every 10 minutes, we perform a sync. Available delta 7. So we know the math is wrong, just immediately wrong. The total delta should only be -2, -1. This total delta should be -3. Let's do some echoing. That's so very wrong. Okay. Here's our scheduler stuffs. Okay. Our total delta is 0, and then it is 12. Yeah, okay. So we have two different SKUs in here. We're only actually working with one for test data purposes. So our total delta is 12. That's not accurate. So let's do some testing. Action, echo, inventory, quantity. Three, minus cached inventory quantity, which is null. Okay, so that's probably part of the problem. Cached inventory quantity, oh, right, because we don't know. Got it. All right, so what's a way to do this that makes sense for testing? If event.preview, just do that, and if, okay. Okay, total delta -3. Oh, are we actually just fine then? That's obviously still not fine, but our total delta was added up correctly, and that's all good. So we can kill these echoes because we know the problem isn't there. Delta for sync. So let's take a look at this, I suppose. Total delta minus delta's SKU. Yeah, let's just turn this into an echo and see what we've got going on here. Our SKU delta is always 0. That's not right. Oh, we're overriding, okay, this is the wrong key. We need to be doing this by variant ID, not by SKU. Did I do it? There we go. And now we should only have 2. Nope, maybe -2, -1. Oh, right. Total delta is -3. So the one that had gone down 2 needs to go down a further 1. The one that went down 2 needs to go, or 1 needs to go down a further 2. The one that didn't go down at all needs to go down a further 3. So that's actually exactly what it should be. So we set, and then we perform our adjustments, and we set again, and we may actually be done. So let's hit save. Let's grant our final set of access, which mechanic is able to calculate because we have our preview actions correct. We are managing products now, not just viewing them. Update app. Okay, cool. So we run the task. Four and 1, that's great. Our time is coming in just a second here. But for the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to show you another way to test this in a way that doesn't rely on the scheduler. What am I doing? Okay, cool. So we're going to adjust the quantity on our medium SKU on this side. Or we have 2 products here. I changed the one on this. So this shouldn't go down at all now. And the other one should go down by -2, and that should be the only change. So for testing purposes, let's go back over here. Let's add an event that allows us to user/inventory test. Sure, we're just making our own thing here. Save. And we're going to add this to our list of events over here. Where are we? save, head back home, make a new task that runs when triggered and simply triggers this event. It's literally all it's going to do. So we're going to run task. The event that we just created will trigger our other task. It's scheduled a child event. It's this thing right here. Okay, awesome. We're getting closer. So invalid global ID. Yep, that makes sense. So this is related to our location ID, which is perfect. But this is looking good. We only needed to adjust by -2, which is what we did, and that was only for one variant. Awesome. So our location ID, this is not a global ID at all. So let's go back and fix that. Really, the right way to do this is not by going through the shop object in Liquid, but to get this from the shop itself. Location. What's the right way to do this? That's my husband Dave. Happy anniversary. All right, first, how do I want to do this? I could just turn this into a render. I could just turn this into a GID like this. Shopify /location/that. That would work, actually, but I think we can do better. So maybe let's do this instead. So the locations object, the array of locations for shop is available at shop.locations. I believe the primary location has a property on it that allows us to determine if it's primary or not. Maybe that's not it. Not legacy, not active. Okay. Let's back over to GraphQL and let's see what's going on. Locations first 5. Yeah, okay, it's in over in GraphQL. Okay. Is that really our best way to get at the primary location? Locations. Don't love doing it this way. What do we have here? So we can search by. This doesn't feel like a good, simple way to get the location that I want. So I'm going to leave this like this for this run, or this version of the task. Yeah, I'm going to call this a day like this, because this is going to be the ID of the primary location, and I'm okay with that. However, something that we can do is error out if there is more than one location for inventory. Is that the way we want to do this? Or we could just include in the tasks documentation that it only works with shops that have or stores that have a single location. I'm going to include that in the documentation, and if I learn from users down the road that that doesn't work for them, or that if I discover that this is causing issues for people because it was unclear, we can turn that into an actual error when we get that far. Okay, sweet. So we're going to save this. Head back down here. 3 minutes ago, per schedule actually ran. That should be the same error as before. Yeah, invalid global ID. So now if we head back home, run this, go. It's going to create that event, which is going to spawn this event, or all the stuff here. We set -2, inventory goes down by -2, phenomenal. If I run that again, it should do nothing. Yep, perfect. Okay. All right. I think the one thing that I've forgotten to do so far was to make sure that none of this runs if our cached inventory quantity is missing. Sorry, if the scheduled stuff doesn't run, if our cached inventory quantity is missing. Also, we're not using that anymore, so I can save that. If this equals nil, it's not an error, it's not an action, it's just an error. Come on, spacebar. Wow, quantities, there we go. Okay, that's going to show us our error immediately. Yep. We can move that down below where we have set up our cached inventory quantity for event preview. Perfect. Okay. Okay, we're good to go. I'm going to remove this little piece that we were using for testing, and we're set. I'm going to add this to our task library, and we are good to go. Sweet. Thanks for watching. Cheers.